Martha Jane, you done? Okay. So last year we had a few guys get up here and tell some stories. This year we're going to get Martha Jane up here. Martha Jane says she's not coming unless some other people come. But Martha Jane's coming. By herself. Come on, Martha Jane. Martha Jane just said Joey wants to tell everybody what she and Joey did. But she can't. Martha Jane says she can't tell everything. Have a seat. Which seat you want?
Well, one can climb up in the easiest.
Can we get a step stool up here? Can you get there? Come on, come on, come on. All right. You okay?
I'm old.
No, you're not.
I'm only doing this because he asked me to.
At 3 o'clock today. Because I didn't want her to back out. So we're going to talk.
Where's the rest of them?
It's us.
Kyle, you didn't do that to me.
Yes, it is. It's just us.
I'm supposed to have Susan, the person that took my place. I'm supposed to have Susan up here. I'm supposed to have Joey up here, Jody up here.
Well, you got Joey on your mind, don't you there, girl?
Right. I'm supposed to have Jody up here because she's here now. And then we had Kent Simmons. I wanted him up here because he took care of Kyle's money. And I wanted him to tell how he spent all of his money.
That's right. Where did my money go, Kent? I know where it went. Never mind. Because y'all know I'm married again, right? Yeah. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Make sure that makes YouTube. Okay. So... What? So here's what we're going to talk about. It's just you. It's just you. So, show of hands, how many of you guys were here at any given time when Martha Jane worked here?
All right, let me see a hand. Show me a show of hands of how many men or women that I got you out of a speeding ticket.
There we go. Wow. So this is how it begins. Woo! So here's what I want to know. So we're going to go way back in time. So I had an opportunity to play the Sunset Theater in Asheboro, to play some music, and Martha Jane and Willis came and with their family, and my dad came, and I found out that at the Sunset Theater in Asheboro, that Martha Jane and Willis and my mom and dad double dated there. All those years ago. So it was a huge honor for me to be able to go back there and play. How long, tell me how long you knew my mom.
Okay. I might not give it back to you. Okay. Linda Gale and I go back way back. She was my very best friend, his mother. And we grew up in the same church. We went to school together. We did cheerleading together. And then when she started to date Richard Petty, they asked me and Willis to go to the races with them. Well, Willis and I got married in 1958. They got married a couple of years later, or 1 year later. And then she had Kyle. And we didn't have any children. So we said we're going to claim Kyle. You know, and I changed his diaper.
He loves that.
That is my claim to fame is I have changed his diaper. How many people in this room have I ever changed your diaper? Oh, Mark. Yeah, Mark. Probably Mark, right. Well, anyway, we started to double date, and we'd go to Sunset, or we'd really splurge if we go to Carolina Theater in Greensboro. Now, man, that was a treat. And Richard had the car, so we'd double date with him to go to the car. So we go way back, and I feel like, you know, it was part of the family because Linda Gale and I were so much friends, and so close friends. Well, when Richard started racing, they said, well, let's go to the races together. And they'd invite me and Willis to go to the races. You know, that's before you had all you wonderful men. There was the pit crew and the old ones, you know, that you had. And Willis, he'd pull gas. He never got over the fence, Kyle. He never went over the wall. I know, but he could pull the wagon with the gas. They didn't trust him to go over the wall. But anyway, Miss Petty would fix the fried chicken. I'd fix the deviled eggs and the persimmon pudding. Somebody has already got on to me for persimmon pudding.
Yes.
And Linda Gale would fix the turkey breast. And we'd go to the races. And we'd eat out of the back of the trunk. And that was the most fun family time that we had. But I'm going to tell you one story about Mr. Petty going to the races.
I got one question before that. Can I have it?
Yes.
So when I asked you a question about double dating and stuff, you referred to him as Richard Petty. Was he just always Richard Petty?
He was just always Richard and Linda Gale.
Okay.
I didn't ever call him anything else. They were friends, you know, and I never dreamed I would work for him, so that's another story.
So tell me about Lee.
Well,
Mr. Petty.
I called him Mr. Petty and Mrs. Petty, and if Kyle wants to get into when I started to work for him, that's a different story too. So this was before I worked for him. We'd go to the races with Linda Gale and Richard, and we'd always ride together. You know, we'd come up here, and we'd get in the car with Linda and Richard, and Lee and Elizabeth, but I called him Mr. Petty always. And they'd take their car, and back then, you pulled the race car behind a truck or a car. Well, one time we were going to Weaverville. Does anybody remember Weaverville racetrack? Very few hands, very few hands.
Yeah, I know.
Well, nobody ever told me as many times that we'd been to the races, you don't wear green. You do not wear green to the racetrack. I had on this new green pants, green vest. I thought I looked really nice. But anyway, going to the racetrack up there, the trailer come unhitched from the truck, run over in a ditch, and of course everybody got out, pulled the trailer out, hooked it back up, went to the racetrack. Mr. Petty, I think, turned over that day. He did not have a very good day. When we come back, I had no idea what was going on. He sort of pulled me over to the side and he said, Martha Jane, I don't care if you go to the races with Linda and Richard, but by damn, you better never wear green again. Never wore green.
That's perfect. That is. So let me ask you. So when did you go to work here? And the bigger question is, why did you go to work here?
That's a good question. Because I knew how Richard Petty was, because we double dated with him. He wasn't spitting tobacco then at that time, and that's okay. Because I don't think Linda Gale would have kissed him if he had been spitting tobacco. Because there was years later, and I got another story about that spitting tobacco. Anyway, well, I went to accounting school. Went to a small accounting school in Ashburn Business College. And so my first job when I came out was working at a bank, just a local bank in Randleman. And Miss Petty always done the bookkeeping. And and one thing we always had to do at the racetrack, you'd wait till they paid in cash to be sure and get you money before you come home. So not now, but back then, sometime we'd be the last ones leaving, you know. But anyway, one day she came in the bank, and of course we knew each other, and I can see her face right now. She leaned over like she was going to whisper something to me, and she said very quietly, Martha Jane, we're going to go on time cards at the garage, and I don't want to do that. Will you come to work for us? And I said, well, I don't know. I'll come talk to you. And that was in 1969. And when I came up here in 1969, her bookkeeping was what you take in, what you put out, and this is what you got left. Well, we changed that bookkeeping a little bit because the accountant put us on double entry bookkeeping. And you had a time machine over here that everybody punched their clock when they came in. And she did not want to do that. So that was the first time I came to work up here.
So how many of you guys remember the time clocks? Yeah. I used to punch in and go to sleep. So you worked here in '69. Were you the only office employee? Were you the only one?
Yes, because Miss Petty always just took care of the books, And so when they hired me, and because she didn't want to hand figure those time cards, I was the only one in the office. And you only had 2 offices down there. When you come in one door, it was just the office, and then they had an office in the back. It didn't have what you've got now. And so I worked there for 69 and 70. And then all of a sudden, we had a baby that was unexpected. That's Willis's fault. It had been 8 years since we'd had our first child, and we were just sort of satisfied with one child. Had another little girl, but she's precious. So after I found out I was pregnant, and that was in 70, I worked all the way through 70, and then Miss Petty said, well, will you still come back and do my personal bookkeeping? Which I did that for Mr. and Miss Petty. And I said, yes. So part-time, I'd come back. So they hired Brenda Williams, which was a niece of Mrs. Petty's. She was a Toombs, and so she worked from then until 86. And Brenda had to leave for some personal reasons. So after Brenda left, this time, Linda Gale called me, and I was working as a teacher's aide and a librarian at the high school, and she called me at work, and she said, Brenda has left, said, will you come back to work for us? And I said, well, does Richard really want me? I come up here part-time, but I didn't really work for him, during that time. It was Mr. and Miss Petty I worked for. So I came to talk to him. And I told him, I said, I have the summer off. Can we work out a deal that you're going on Friday? Can I just work Monday through Thursday? Best deal I ever made. I didn't have to work on Friday. So I came back in 86 and then retired in 2004.
Yeah. So when did Louise come? Because it was first you, and then Louise come, and Louise did. How many of you guys got check or per diem from Louise? Yeah.
How many of you were ever off a nickel and Louise collected that nickel from you? Exactly. Okay, Louise.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Louise Laughlin, she worked as a bank. When I worked at the bank, she did the insurance business there. And so they decided that they needed 2 girls in the office, and that I would take care of Richard's schedule, and that Louise would do the bookkeeping. And she did it to a T, let me tell you now. You didn't get anything past Louise. And she worked here until, I can't remember, Julia, man, where are you? Julia, do you know how long she worked here?
Probably about 97 or 98.
Okay, then Louise retired, and then Julia, she came while Louise was still here. My mouth.
Hey, can somebody? We need a tea.
My tea's over there.
Well, they've got a whole pot of it over here. Give me tea. I need a tea from back here. Yeah. Martha Jane's mouth's getting dry, and that tea's got a little something special in it. So bring that tea over here. Well,
that Joey probably spiked it.
That's Joey.
Yeah.
Joey, Martha Jane just said y'all were at the bar. You probably spiked it. Listen, I worked here when Joey worked here, and I missed this relationship. I gotta be honest with you. Need some more?
That's good.
Okay. All right. So when you came in '69, then what'd you see? You left in 71, 70. How many people were working here then? And then when you came back, about how many people were working? Well, how had it changed?
And when I came to work in 69 and 70, and we did the time cards, there were probably only about 42 or 43 people, working here. Then when I came back in 86, gosh, you did the payroll too. There was probably at least 80 or 90. Was there more than that?
Well, in 94, there was like 42. But that was before you had the engine shop.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was a big difference. I will tell you. Let me get back to your granddaddy a minute.
You can go. Tell me about him. Tell me your perspective on him. I know my perspective.
I called him Mr. Petty, and I didn't ever call him anything else.
I didn't call him Mr. Petty.
Yeah, I called him Mr. Petty. He was a very strict person about what he wanted to know, because if he came in that office and he needed to know something, I better have the answer for him. Taking care of their personal money. And he was so funny. Sometimes he would come in and he'd say, "Martha Jane, do I have any money?" And I'd say, "Well, let me add it up and tell you how much money you have. Yeah, you have money." He had some warehouses over in Charlotte when they built the airport there. And he built some warehouses. He had a man in Charlotte that looked after him, but the checks always came to Mr. Petty because he rented those warehouses. And so when he would ask me that, I would make a list for him, whatever date it was and whatever money he had in whatever account it was. Now, I don't know what he put up here in the house by cash. Mark, you might know that, if you ever tore the house down. But anyway, he wanted to know how much money he would have. And then he'd say, "Well, do you think I can go to the golf course today and play?" And I'd say, "Yes, but don't bet too much, okay?" Because he did like to go and bet, didn't he, Kyle? Yes, yeah. He did. He was funny like that.
So you just opened up a can here. So when he had those warehouses over there, what did they rent them to? Did they ever get in trouble renting those places?
I didn't get in trouble.
Did he?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, don't you remember?
No.
Yeah. What? Come on, you remember. So he had these warehouses over there, and he would just go to the mailbox and get the check. I mean, that's what it was. He didn't have a clue what was over there. And then it came out in the paper that Lee Petty had a warehouse at Charlotte at the airport that they had a massage parlor in. You remember that? Remember that? He called Mr. Lloyd. With Mr. Lloyd run it. Yeah, he ran the place. Yeah.
He had a man that just looked after it, and I don't know that he ever went over there very often to even look at the warehouses. He just got the checks, and he made me keep up with, if the check was on time or if it wasn't. But we didn't know what was in the warehouses, and I don't think Mr. Petty did either. So.
Oh my gosh. That was good. So, you worked with grandmother. So tell us, do you have any stories about grandmother? Because grandmother, she looked after, until Martha Jane came along, like Martha Jane said, she looked after all the money. Richie and them, and Timmy and Mark and them, we had, when they passed away, they showed us a thing one day, and there was like an airplane ticket. It was an airplane ticket. Granddad flew to New York to talk to Chrysler or something, if I remember. This has been a number of years that I'd seen it. And it was just a double-folded ticket, two-sided. And you would punch a hole on this side that said where you were flying from and punch a hole on this side on where you were flying to. And he stayed at, if I remember right, he stayed at a place called the Bristol Hotel in New York City. Got there, spent the night, went to dinner, spent the night, had some meetings the next day, had a lunch, a breakfast, a dinner, something like that. Spent the night and came back the following day. So he's basically up there for a day and a half, 2 days, 2 nights, something like that. So his plane ticket, his hotel rooms, and 3 or 4 meals was like $84. Okay? And grandmother had added it all together and put a note that said, "Never go back to New York City, too expensive." Okay? Yeah, so she looked after every dime. Every dime that came in, she knew where it was. So how was grandmother to work with? But tell me a story. But you told a couple of Lee Petty stories. Tell me a grandmother story. You can.
Oh my goodness. I felt like she was you make me cry now. I felt like she was a very, very special person. To me, she treated me like the daughter she didn't have. Now I'm going to get sentimental now, because I just really felt like I was part of their family when I came to work for them. She was very strict about watching after the money. I think she sometimes really kept him under her thumb when it came to spending any money. But once I started doing the bookkeeping, of course, she'd ask every once in a while, well, how's it going and things like that. But I felt like I had a very personal relationship with her. And I still have things hanging on my Christmas tree that she made, that she crocheted and made crafts. Now, she was one of the leaders down here at Level Cross Methodist Church, and they made chicken pies, those ladies did. Well, our church now makes chicken pies. This time we made 813, and I feel like I learned that from her. She not only taught me business ethics, but she taught me how to be strong, because I seen in her a really strong lady. She went through having a son that had polio at a young age. She had a son that decided wanted to crawl in a race car at a very young age. So you had to be a strong person to take that kind of life. I don't really have any funny stories to tell her. She wasn't a funny person, was she, Kyle? He was, but, not her. But I truly value what she taught me as a young woman coming to work in a job that I dearly loved by working here, and had been treated with great respect through her and Mr. Petty. So I can't give you a funny story about her.
That's all right.
Yeah.
But you can give me a funny story about Richard Petty, I'm sure. So when Martha Jane talked about that she and Willis would come up to the house, and this is the way it always worked. If we were going to Martinsville, we may leave at 6 or 7 in the morning, something like that. Leave pretty early, and my mom would get Sharon and Lisa and get us up. It was just me and Sharon about that time, but she would get us up and put us in the car. We'd still be about half asleep. And Martha Jane and Willis would get there, and they get in the car, and they get all the food in the car, and they get everything ready, and they crank the car, and then they go get Daddy up. Would they not? They go. He was the last one out of the house, and the last one.
He'd be the last one out of the house. We'd be in the car, ready to go. He'd get in the car and drive. Funny story. Well, when your sister Lisa was born, I can tell this. It's not so funny, but this is just how dedicated Richard Petty was about driving, and also about getting up. I'll tell you this. When I first came up here, there was a recliner in the back office. We had like a board table, but over in the corner was a recliner. So Kyle has told you that, if Richard had worked a full day, that he would have gotten really even more famous and more popular and had more money or whatever, right, Kyle?
That's right, just worked half days.
Well, he worked his half day, and then some days when he would come in, you wouldn't know where he was at. I might need to ask him a question or something, and I'd come out in the garage to see if I could find him or whatever, and I think, I know where he's at. You'd open the office door in the back for the conference room, and he'd be over there in the recliner. So, he didn't work a half a day. Some days he didn't work even a whole day. So that was, you had to get him up. I don't know if this is a funny story, but when I came back the second time, yes, it was quite changed. We didn't even have a computer then when I came back the second time. They did break down and buy me a word processor. I thought that was so nice of them that, I had a typewriter that had a correcting tape on it that I used for correcting tape, but they did finally break down. And the only reason they broke down and done that was because of Doug Patterson. You remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Well, can I tell you one more story about him?
You go. This is you.
Does anybody know Doug Patterson that worked with Chrysler? And that's when Mr. Petty thought, or Richard did, I guess, and Morris probably, that they needed some kind of manager here. And so they brought this Doug Patterson down from Chrysler. And he was a northerner. We didn't know.
Look at yourself. Look at yourself.
We really did not know, but he did help me get a word processor.
Yeah.
It was Doug Patterson that got me a word processor instead of that typewriter. So one day, though, I cannot remember what the discussion was, but Doug Patterson and Mr. Petty got in a really heated argument. Now, I knew who was going to win if they come to blows, and it was coming to blows because Mr. Petty said, I'm going to hit the hell out of you, Doug, if you don't get out of my way. And I got up from my office and run to the closet. I was not going to be a referee between that northerner and Mr. Petty, because I knew whose side I was on, and I knew who paid my paycheck. Doug Patterson didn't last maybe 2 weeks after that. He was gone. Right? He was gone. Okay. Well, let's see. Where'd we get to?
Yeah, you were just telling me about Daddy. What?
Oh, yeah, your daddy, yeah. Okay. Well, we all know he chewed tobacco later in his life, and your mother hated it.
Yes.
Oh, she hated it. Well, some days he would come in, and I know he hadn't been up long, but he'd come in and he sat down, and I'd say, Richard, you got to get the boogers off your mustache. You just got to wipe your mustache off. Or is that tobacco? Get that tobacco off your mustache. Well, he was real. He just wanted to spit anywhere. It didn't matter where he was at. It didn't matter if you were standing there and he wanted to spit on the floor at your shoes. He would just spit. One day Linda Gale come in and we had some plastic plants sitting there in the corner. Don't ever use a plastic plant in the office, please. Anyway, she come in and by that time they'd built 2 more offices, and it was a big office. So my office was in the back, right where Jody's is now, and she come in just like she usually does in a hurry, and she stopped and she said, Martha Jane, come here. And I come in and she said, has he been spitting in this plant? I didn't want to get in trouble with Linda Gale. I would rather have anybody in the world mad at me than Linda Gale. You never wanted her to be mad at you. And I said, well, he thinks it's real. He don't think this is real. You go get him. I said, I don't know where he's at, Linda Gale. I'll go get him then. So out she went here in the garage, and here she come back in, and she said, have you spit in this plant? And he said, well, it was a place to spit, So she said, you carry this plant out this door and throw it away. Well, that was the last time he ever spit in the plant, I'll tell you that. We moved all the plants out of the office because we weren't going to have that. There's been funny things. As we went to the races over the years, and a lot of times when Linda Gale didn't want to go, we'd keep Kyle, and that was fun too. Sharon never did want to stay with me. She was a mama girl. Now, Rebecca, sometimes she would be at my house just as much as our youngest daughter would be at Lyndon Richards' house, because they grew up together, Rebecca and our youngest daughter, Linda Lee. But, it was fun. He was a good person to work for. You didn't cross him, and I tried very hard not to cross him. I can remember one time after I came back the second time, and I was wanting an answer to a question. And he started walking out the door because, he didn't stay very long. He'd come in and wait a while and walk out. And I stopped him. I said, Richard, I need to know an answer right now. He turned around and he said, don't you ever point your finger at me again. I said, okay, but are you going to give me an answer? And, I put my fingers behind me, but I needed an answer right then. So, and you want to tell about his little cards he carries around?
You tell it. Go.
Yeah. Well, this is one time he come in too, and he said, I got to know where I'm going. I thought, well, it's not my trouble to tell you where you're going. Figure it out yourself. And he said, I've got to know who I'm supposed to see. And this was way back. This was way, way back. This was when I worked here the first time. This was way back. This one I had the typewriter, not the word processor. And it had the correction tape. And so he said, I've got to figure out some way, that I know where I'm at. And I said, well, you carry your billfold all the time. And I said, what if I type you up a sheet, that will just show you who's supposed to pick you up, what has a telephone number, and that kind of thing. He said, no, I've got to have something that would fit in my billfold. I don't want to have to be unfolding it and that thing. So we developed the little index cards. If you ask him where he's going now, he'll still pull that index card out. Now, I don't know if he knows where he's going or where he's been, but, he's supposed to know on that card. He still does it the same way. And then after I came back the second time, Brian Moffett was in the office one day when he was over there working in the market department, and he come in, and it was when these blackberries, the blackberries came out. And Brian needed some batteries for his BlackBerry. Well, we was trying to find batteries, and Brian didn't know where his going either, so, he had to have his BlackBerry. And so Richard was sitting there, and he whipped out them cards, and he said, see, I never need a battery. I've got my information right here. I know where I'm going. Exactly. Right, so he done that.
Forever. So we'll wrap it up here. So when you look at all the people that have come through here, and a lot of them are here tonight, and you think back over from being here in 69 and 70 and then coming back in 86 and until you retired, what stands out to you the most about this place? Is it the trophies? Is it the wins? Or is it the people?
That's not a hard question at all. They didn't care about the trophies. They loved the wins. I've told people more than one time, when you have a job that you come in on Monday and it depended what they did on Sunday, whether or not you had a good Monday. If you won on Sunday, Monday was going to be great. If you didn't win, if they did something that wasn't quite right, Monday wouldn't be so great. But the attitude of everybody that had worked here was still on top. I mean, every person that came through this company, I think they loved their job. And they loved it because it was a family that asked them to come to work here. The same way as Miss Petty reaching over that counter and saying, will you come to work for us? It was an opportunity to be with people that cared for you. I worked around a lot of men, and Joey, discluding you, okay? I'm going to get to Joey in a minute because my husband's here. But, I worked around a lot of men, and never once did I walk through this garage that I was shown any disrespect. And I appreciated that so much because for the longest time, it was just me and Miss Petty. And then when they began to increase their, employment, it was more than just me and Miss Petty. I want to tell you one thing about Morse, though. The difference between Richard and Morse Morris come in with the bills, and he said, is this something that we have received? Is this something that we need to pay? And he would sit down with me and go over each bill. Richard Petty didn't care if there was a bill even come to this garage. All he wanted to do was get in there and, drive that car. But I think every person sitting in this room that has worked here, it's because you were loved. And I think they showed you that love when you were here. Can I get a clap of hands for that? And it didn't matter if you worked here a week, 2 weeks, 20 years, or whatsoever. You enjoyed being here, and they made you feel at home. It was a job I loved. And simply because I was a friend of the family, I got worked into the job. But I felt so fortunate that, first of all, I'd have been a friend to this boy's mother. And probably it would have never happened if it hadn't been for that. But, it's been a joy. It has been just a joy.
All right. So, one more thing. So, I will say this. That you see the group here, and we've seen see the group here, and there's a lot of people that aren't here, that aren't here tonight. But I don't think there's anybody that's ever come through this place that was more important to this place or more loved than this woman right here. Thank you very much. No. Thank you.
Just because I changed his diaper, he said that. I know he did. I want to tell you, Joey, because my husband's going to ask me when I get home, what is that between you and Joey? So, Joey, he's sitting right behind you. Please explain. Well, we have gone several times to see Kyle sing. Well, I'm not a bar person. I'm sorry. I didn't buy any of the wine, but if y'all want to buy it, that's fine. I don't go to a bar. Well, Kyle was singing in a bar at Lexington. Well, we've gone several times to hear him sing. So myself and another friend that was a good friend of Linda Gale's, Linda Brown, we picked up Linda Brown and my youngest daughter. That one that was a mistake, but I love her anyway. Anyway, we went to Lexington, and Kyle said it's going to be in a bar. Well, we went in, and he had a reserved seat for us right up front, and they come around, you want anything to drink? No, thank you, we're good. Well, on the other end over here was Joey and his bar people. Now, they kept going over there. I mean, we didn't have to buy any drinks because that table over there bought all the drinks that was necessary. So every time Kyle would sing a song, we'd say, ha, 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 something, and Joey would say, ha, 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 something. So we got a competition between us. So that's the connection I have with Joey in a bar. Willis, forgive me, but Willis was sitting right beside me, so he didn't order drinks, but, Joey, they had a good time.
Yep. 85 years, you finally went to the bar, and your life just went down the rails. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You okay? No, she's right. So thank you, guys. Thank everybody for coming. If you remember, we did this last year, and I'll end on this. We did this last year with Richie and Roger and a bunch of you guys, Danny Holiday, a bunch of you guys came up here. And one of the guys that came up here with us last year was Tex Powell. And Tex recently has passed away. And he will forever be a part of this place and forever be a part of what Petty Enterprise was, what they did. You can't say enough, but we didn't want the night to pass without remembering Tex. So thank you guys for coming from wherever you came from. Be safe going home, and please come back next year. We're going to do a lot of stuff this coming year. This is the 75th year of our family in racing. So we're excited about it. We're starting a YouTube channel. We're going to put up some stuff. Some of the stuff Chris has filmed tonight. We've put up. You guys did a bunch of stuff as some of you came in to talk about some stuff. So please, next Christmas, going to have another big party here. We'll do some more stuff. You want to talk? Yes. Yeah. I knew. Come on. So, but I just wanted to remember Tex tonight, and keep Marilyn and their family in your prayers.
Yeah, I'd like to speak just a second about Tex. I think the last time I seen Tex and got to talk to him was like in March. I went down to a shop down there at Ether and was talking to him and Richie, and we was kidding like we all get together, old friends and stuff. I just want everyone to know, Tex asked me that day that I was down there. He says, Joe, he says, let me ask you a question. I said, okay, what's that, Tex? He says, I look around, and he said, all of us, all our old friends and all everything. He says, he said, I look at them, he says, they're getting old. He says, Joe, he says, I don't feel like I'm getting old. He says, but all my friends, they look like they're getting old. He said, do you feel that way? And I said, yes. I said, I feel the same way, Tex. But I just want everybody to know, Tex was good. I guess somewhere around March, he started getting sick. And Tex loved us all, and we all love each other. We're racers. We got the same thing in our heart. And, we'll miss Tex.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you guys for coming.